we're going to do 3 styles. I wanted to show you these 3 styles here that are really easy. I think they're easy and very fresh. And I mean, I haven't put any sentiments on them, but I'm not sure if I'm going to yet. I'm not even finished with this one, but I wanted to play with. This is just kind of a last minute this morning thing. And this is something that we were going to do. I already had planned, which Diane has already had practice on this one. But, you know, these.
I could use more practice.
There we go. So I have these 3 cards, holiday inspired. They can be for, if you want to do it in your journal, it would be great. If you wanted to do a little something in your journal, you can do it with this. But what you need are watercolors. Let's see what I've got. Just watercolors. If you have metallic ones, great. If you don't, that's okay. Just a little pencil, like I use a little drafting pencil, but just something very light to make a mark. You don't want it to be too dark. Just a variety. I use like smaller brushes because we're doing kind of delicate things, but just a little variety of brushes. A flat brush is really good to have for doing this card here. And then the smallish, sort of a small round brush, whatever you've got in your arsenal there. Watercolors, any, let's see, I just use any of my watercolors, but you know, just whatever you have in watercolors. Could be any cheap brand, doesn't have to be expensive at all. A blank greeting card or a piece of watercolor paper is good, because if you want to just do them without, if you want to make them and then mount them on a card, that's fine too. But these are the styles that we're doing, and I already did them on cards. But if you want to do them on just a blank piece of watercolor paper or a postcard, or even in your journal to practice, maybe the first time around. But this one looks, to me, it looks complicated when I look at it, but it really is not. It's very simple. And we're going to start with this one, and then we're going to move on to this mistletoe, and then we're going to move on to the little tree. So I'm going to put these aside. And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to just, for the first thing, let's do a background. We're not painting this card yet, but if you have a little masking tape, if you don't have masking tape, you can just do a loose background, but very light. So we're going to just do a light background, a wash of color. And I'm going to, but everybody, what I'll do is mute everybody so that I can make the recording. And then if at the end of the demo, of course, we will just, if I can get this here, figure this out here. Why am I not doing this? Oh, Cindy's coming in. Yay. Okay. So that was our last person. She's coming in now. And we'll say hi to Cindy. Get everybody muted and everybody's getting ready. Okay. And Cindy's, well, she's coming in, so I'll give her a little quick update on what we're doing. Now, I wanted to share with you a little bit on the watercolors. I just like the bold, simple colors. If you have a palette or even an inexpensive pan set that has a nice green and some reds, because this is a pretty simple palette. We're not going to go too crazy on color mixing, but just get yourself your variety of watercolors. And hi, Cindy. I don't know if you hear me yet, but we'll go ahead and get started on this part, the background for one of the cards. And I've masked it off with some masking. This is the washi tape. Hi, Cindy. Nice to see you. We're just going to I've got the cards. We're going to I'll quickly show those to you real quick. We've got 3 cards styles that we're going to do. And one was this one. Thank you. Yes. This one we're doing the background right now for. We're going to start a background. So you need to mask off the edges of your watercolor paper or greeting card stock, or even in your journal, whatever you've got. And that's our first thing, is just we're going to mask off. So go ahead and make a border on your paper or even in your journal. And we will do, let's see, get everybody muted. All right, good. Okay, everybody's muted. All right, so we'll at the end, of course we can go over stuff, but I'll just do this so that we can have a nice demo. So I'm using, for the background, I'm just going to use a wash brush, this flat wash brush. And I'm going to pick, I think I want to pick kind of a neutral, I don't know, maybe, let's see what kind of colors would be nice. For that background, since my tree is going to be kind of a dark green, and then I'm going to have sort of kind of a mountain, or it's just something to sit the tree on. I think I want to just do a little soft background, just some soft colors. Maybe a sunset. I don't know. It's a desert. I live in the desert, so maybe I should do a sunset. But just something with very soft colors, or I could even do purple. I've got this really pretty kind of a purpley color. I might just grab that, but just a soft background. It doesn't have to be, you don't want to go too dark. You might even take a wash and just wash it across your paper. And if you want to change colors just a little bit, just very subtle. I'm just doing a very subtle background here. I'm kind of just going across the paper, and I don't want to make it too wet. I don't want to make it really soaking wet. I just want it kind of, I'm just going to do a little pink too. That'd be pretty. Just 3 colors basically, really soft graduated wash in the background. Just enough to tint the paper. You don't want it so dark that it overpowers it, but just a tint. And of course, this will be much lighter when it dries. And I'm going to just leave it like that, and I'm going to set it aside because that needs to dry. So once you've painted your background, your wash, and you can even like dab up the sides a little bit, just we're going to let that sit. And if you need to, I use this tool a lot when I want to expedite drawing. All I need to do is just hit it with this. It's like a dryer, but it's really quiet. It's actually really much hotter than a dryer. You don't want to dry your hair with this because you would definitely fry it. But what's great about it is it does dry things quickly. And if you ever, this is my favorite of all time. It doesn't really do embossing very well, but boy, it dries your watercolors super fast. And it's called the Heated Craft Tool. I think it's Ranger, and they have a white one and a black one. And they're just an indispensable tool to have when you're doing this kind of stuff and you want to do it fast. So I'm going to set that aside so it can dry. And now the first card we're going to do, and I love this design. I found this, let's see, while cruising on YouTube. And I've got these blank greeting cards I'm using. These are it's just like 140 pound, or maybe a little heavier, cold press watercolor paper, and they already have scored edges. Strathmore makes them, and I like them because they're just really, really convenient. But if you don't have you don't have a card like this, you can just use use a recycled greeting card and then put your watercolor paper over it. You can do all kinds of things like that. Now I can leave this open like this, which I think maybe I'll do right now is this, but this thing folds right like this in the center. And I'm just going to leave it open just to make things a little easier for me to do this. So what I need to do, and if you could grab a circle, something that will make a circle. And this one you can see is perfect. It will sit right, I could put it in the center. I could put it kind of up high if I want to put a little sentiment down below. I'm just going to place it kind of in the center, but maybe a little above. And I'm going to make a very, very pale line. Really, really pale. I don't want to go too dark at all. This line will be erased at the end of it, but it is a very pale. It's just a guide for me to do my thing here. So you can see I have this circle now, and you can make any size circle. You can, for a little wreath. This is this size. You can see how I built everything from that circle, and this, so whatever size circle you use, you can make a circle out of this one too, and make a smaller one on a smaller card, let's say. So you could just, whatever size circle you want to make for the card size you have. So I'm going to start with this. And what we want to do, if you're all at that circle place, if you've got your circles, I'm going to grab this. I like this paint. This is nice because it has some pure, really nice greens and nice reds. And really the cheaper palettes actually have, even though this one isn't a cheap one, but you can get some of the ready-made palettes that are already poured have these beautiful bright colors. And usually I stay away from those when I'm doing watercolor, but for this, I love it because I can get the colors I want. So I'm just going to take a small round brush. This is a number 4 Princeton, but number 6, up to a number 8 even, just something kind of small, but not too tiny. You could practice your leaf strokes on a separate piece of paper, or you can just go for it on this. But I'll show you what I'm going to start with. I need to mix a fair amount of green, and I'm going to just go ahead and pick up some color, and I need some nice green. And I could just maybe have a couple of colors of green in this design. So I'm just going to start with one mix, which this kind of looks a little too blue-green. It's kind of a viridian color. And I think I need to add a little something to make it darker. So I'm just adding this dark green, and I think that's more of it's a beautiful green. There we go. So it's a nice dark, kind of a darkish green, and I'm making enough, but for a medium amount of color, not too thin, not too thick, just a nice mix of color of green. And if you want to add purple or anything else in that to darken it, let's say if I wanted to put, I think that's purple. Yep, there's a purple. That gives it a darker tone. By adding that purple, just darkens that green a little bit. And then you can give yourself a couple of tones of the green. That's almost two. I need to add a little more green to that. There. So now I've got like a medium green and a dark green. So I'm just going to make little leaves going around this circle. And I'll show you, just if you watch how I do it, I just use the circle as if it's the stem. And I'm just going to kind of create little leaf shapes. And it doesn't have to be fancy, just kind of like little leaf shapes going around the whole thing. I'm just going to do it. And I can turn my card around, which is always easier to do than to actually try to do your wrist in circles. So I'm going to space these little leaves. I'm not going to be too perfect, but you can space them out about like an inch maybe, or half an inch. And you can always reshape your leaves if you feel like you didn't get quite the shape you wanted. You can always kind of work that with your brush. You can make them fatter or skinnier. Like I think I need to make that one fatter, so I'm just going to bring it out a little bit with my brush. What's great is when you're working with the watercolor, as long as you do it while it's still wet, you can reshape your leaves. These first ones are still a little dry, but I can still go over it if I want, which I will, just to kind of give it a consistency. But the leaves are just being made without, the stem is the drawn pencil line, but that pencil line, that will disappear. We'll get rid of that. I'm just going to go around, and I really find it much easier just to turn my paper. And if we've done leaves with me before, this is kind of, you've already had practice at this. And I have a leaf here that just looks ridiculously funny shaped, but I'm going to keep working it there until it looks like a leaf. Yeah, like that. And if you have too many puddles, let's say the ends are too puddled and you don't like that, just move that color down the leaf to even it out a little bit. Then it doesn't puddle up so much. And just go all the way around your card. And I think I'm spending too much time laboring over the leaves too much. So because I really want it to be perfect, but I shouldn't be striving for perfection, because it's all pretty cool when it's done anyway. And really, the details aren't that important. And this is a really good way to practice any type of strokes that you want to kind of master. You can do it with this. And the looser it is, it's okay. These look beautiful because they're watercolor. The watercolor is so fresh and pretty. So however you make your leaves, and everybody's leaf is going to be different because it's sort of like a signature in the way you work. You will notice that whatever you do is your own style, and it's perfectly gorgeous. Just have fun with the watercolors. I see mine are getting longer and longer as I go around, but that's fine. I'm trying to have some kind of consistency in the shape of this wreath that we're going to do. I'm just going to go all around. it's almost like each brush has its own personality. Like this is the Princeton Aqua Elite, and I like it because I like it for this kind of thing because it has a little less water saturation than, let's say, the silver black velvets. Those are pretty juicy. I mean, they hold a lot of water. So you've got, and the Aqua Elites are a little more, I have a little more control with those. So I've kind of gone all the way around kind of as even as I could, even though it's not totally even, but that's quite fine. Got my little circle of leaves, my first circle. And now I'm going to stop that. I'll just finish this little guy right here. And I can see I need to just make this one a little longer. So you can play with the leaves like that. And then now I'm going to take some red. I'm going to clean my brush out completely. And then get myself a beautiful, nice, bright red, which, ooh, that's a pretty red. And I'm going to start making berries. And I'm just going to put them wherever. It doesn't have to be, it's going to be in between the leaves somewhere. I'm just going to kind of make a circle. Now, when you do a circle, it's kind of weird with these because I have to kind of start in the center and move out to make kind of nice round shapes. If you get plenty of paint, and especially if this nice red, you want it to be nice and strong. You just start with and start in the center and kind of move your way out to make a little round circle. You can go just all the way around your circle, and you can decide to do threesies or onesies or just random anything. I'm just doing kind of a random, slightly changing the shape of the size of the berries a little bit. Just go around. You can use the same brush, this particular painting, just the same brush for everything. I don't think you need to have any different sizes. You can go on your pencil mark, that's fine, because if you paint over your pencil mark, you'll erase everything that's showing after it's completely dry. You can go inside the circle and outside. And this is just very mindful and calm, very calming. There's really no way that you could get the same one twice. I'm making a much bigger one here, and that means I'm going to balance it out with a bigger one over here. Here, just to have that balance. And I think I'll make a big one right here. This one looks more like a raspberry. Trying to get that round shape. It's just controlling your brush. But if you want to take something, there's probably a way to make round things a lot less, that aren't so tedious. I would think there's brushes we could use that could make round, just dot. You could use a dot tool, actually. I think it might be fun because then it would be a lot quicker. But this is still, I kind of like the control, being able to control, kind of learning brush control with this, or practicing brush control. So now I've got pretty much, I'm going to add a few more threesies over here, just because I've got threes over on the other side. And then maybe that's probably enough right there. Maybe just one set over here, or just one dot. Okay. So now I think I have enough balance of red in this at this point. Could go crazier, but there's still more to come. So now I'm going to take a lighter green. So I've got this dark green, medium green, dark green, and I'm going to take a lighter green now. This is a pretty green. You could add yellow to your green that you already have. That could make it more just changes the tone a little bit. And then you could just mix up a green that's lighter, a little bit lighter in color, or even if it's not even light, it's just a different color of green. Just varying the greens will make this really stand out. So I've got kind of a lighter green, more of a yellow green here. And now I'm just gonna make smaller, actually, I'm sorry, I'm not doing that yet. Don't mix up your green, but don't do it yet. I just realized I have one more step I wanted to do. So I've got my green, but I'm not using it yet. I'm gonna take the same green I was working with, or I can take this darker green. I'm just gonna go in and make some smaller leaves, just a little bit smaller than what I did originally. I'm just gonna go inside and just kind of create in between the other ones. Just gonna go and make smaller ones. Kind of in the same, along that, where that string, where the circle is, using your circle as the guide. Just smaller. And these are not even real leaf shapes. They're just kind of like little, I don't know what they are. They're not quite leaves. They look like little oval football shapes or something. Just kind of take them a little, just stagger them inside the larger leaves that you first made. And I'm just going to kind of go through this quickly to try to, and of course, if you don't want to, if your paint is still wet, the red paint, try not to get your green paint into the red, because then it would look really muddy. We'll try not to do that. And this could be as simple or as complex as you want it to be. But the more you add to it, the more interesting it gets. So now I've got my little, okay, I'll fill those in with the small leaves. Next step, we're going to take the light green, and that's where I kind of forgot. The light green, we're going to also make even smaller, or the same size, but a little, maybe even a little smaller. But we're just going to kind of go in, maybe that's too light, but maybe not. I got to go in between, just basically kind of filling it in a little bit, the center. Just that lighter green gives it a little more interest. You can even go outside a little bit like this, just to kind of fill it. Basically, you're fluffing the wreath out a little bit. You can just kind of you can even make little tiny like little shapes, like little, I don't know what those little dashes, which will give the impression of leaves or greenery, basically. Just go throughout the whole circle. You can make little dots, or little branches if you wanted to make little, just like little thin, little, you have little branches, twigs. As long as you don't touch your red. For some reason, my red puddles are still drying, so they're, don't want to get the green into that. And just like fill in the areas where where you think you need to fill it in. You can see I'm just very quickly going through. And I think I've got it filled in pretty well there. And you can do with your dark color, do the same thing. With your dark, just kind of make little branches all the way through, just using that pencil as your stem. That's really what's going to kind of anchor all these shapes that you've got going. And now that wreath this one looks pretty done. So I'm just going to let that dry. And once if I could see, if you want to fill in areas like this area here, I see I want to fill it, maybe just add a little bit more green, just to make it look, you just can see how it's balanced, basically. Kind of filling in as you need to. And you can see this one is a lot more fat, but I wanted to see how the difference is, but you can just build your own wreath depending on how, go as fat as you want by just adding more of these little green things going outward, or these little leaves. But it really is, they're just so cute. And if you wanted to add some some glitter or something, you know, or other things, metallic colors, you can. That would be kind of neat. But I think the green, just the simple watercolor is really pretty effective too. So let's set those, once you're finished with that, I'm not going to rush you. I don't want you to rush because we are just, and fill that, kind of fill in the area where the pencil line is. You don't want to cover it up completely, but just give that, just fill it in with little green sprigs. And then let that dry. We're going to set that aside. Let that dry because it will look different. And now while we've practiced our leaves a little bit, I'd like to do something. This is really a fun thing to do. It's like mistletoe. Now, I didn't add the ribbon up here because I think I would like to use a real piece of red ribbon, like, you know, a little tiny grosgrain ribbon, right? Tied up at the top would look so cute. So I'm going to save this for that. But to do this, to do the mistletoe, I'm going to show you how to do that. What you want to do is if your card, you're going to paint it upside down. And this is what the trick is in this. This is it's a trick. It's a wonderful trick because if you tried to paint it the way it's supposed to be painted, it'd be a lot harder. So mix up some green, just using the same brush you just used. You can use the same green if you want. Or just, yeah, mix up plenty of green. And what you want to do, let's say your card, if you want to make your card a portrait style, you're going to turn it upside down. And you're going to paint your card upside down. So the folded edge is on my right side right now. And I'm going to tape it down a little on my table because it's just going to want to flip out. But this is my folded edge. And just going to anchor it so it won't go anywhere. So what I have is I have my lots of green still. And since we're practiced at making these leaves, we've had a little time to work with that. I'm going to paint this mistletoe I'm going to paint it going up because even though mistletoe comes down, but painting it is going to be easier having the leaves go away from me. So if you kind of watch how I'll start with a stem, and I'm going to, since I want my mistletoe sprig or stem to end right here, I'm going to start start it as a little thin stem, and then I'm going to just press down to make a leaf, just like that. And I think I'd like to add a little purple or something because it's just too green. Let's see, add a little purple. I'm going to just go ahead and do it again because it just came out too light. I'm just going to kind of go over what I just did. And there, that's I want more of a mistletoe green, which is kind of I always think of it as it has a little purple, or I don't know, it's cool. It's a cool green usually. So there's my first little stem. And then I can just work it by starting by my brush, just barely touching the paper. And I'm just going to go very light, and then I'm going to push down to create another leaf. And I can just bring more color in and do the same thing with this one here. I'm just going to start very, very light. I like barely touch the paper and make a little thin stem. And I'm going to press down to make that leaf. And I can do this and I'll just create all these leaves. There we go. I'm just filling it in because I want it to be more dark. So there's that. They might be too dark, but it should dry lighter. And then I can take the same, I'm just going to keep working it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a stem, and I'm going to make a nice little leaf shape by pressing down. And same thing here. I'm going to go here and do the same thing that way. Just make little leaves and very loose, and you don't have to make them perfect. In fact, the more watercolorish looking they are, the better they look. I'm just going to overlap it a little bit. And then my cat just said something. She said hello to everybody, I think. Is that what you're doing? I kind of I don't want these really pointed because mistletoe it does not have pointed ends. It's rounded. So I want these rounded. So I see a pointy end here while it's still wet, I can round it a little bit. Just to round those out so that it'll look a lot more like what it's supposed to. But it's just an impression. We're not really trying to take a photo of something and trying to reproduce it. We're just giving kind of the impression. So now I've got more rounded little leaves. And the same thing, I'm going to make a little sprig of this. So there we go. I'm just going to go round like that. Maybe a little more here. Here I'm just kind of forcing that round edge. Just keep doing it until you get to the shape you want, or the amount of the mistletoe. If you want lots of it, you can do a big sprig, or you can do a smaller sprig. And so I think I've got kind of what I want. I might want to go a little, let's see, a little bit more like this. So I've got a good amount of leaves now, big leaves. Maybe one more right in here. Let's see. Just bringing it in, just do it. And you can overlap your leaves. That's perfectly fine because in nature they overlap. So now I've got this sort of neat mistletoe shape thing going. Now with my darker green, slightly darker green, I'm going to make little stems, like little thin stems, so I can do my little berry things on it. So I'm just going to create tiny little stems with the very tip of my brush. Just very little. I'm going to go in like this and make tiny little stems. Maybe up here. So that, I think I'll just stop right there on that. So now I've got these little stems, and at the very last part, take your brush and make little berries. The same thing you did on the wreath. You can make different color, just little, but this isn't really the big berries. These are going to be more small. They're smaller. They're more like little dashes of color. I got to find the right red though. Here's a good red. So this one, instead of making circles, I'm just going to do little kind of dots, like sort of like dots, kind of loose and very delicate. And that's that on that. So when I turn it over, now that I've got that, I'm going to keep that top up so I can put a real ribbon on it. But what's great is you paint upside down, and then you turn the card over, and now you have a piece of mistletoe. It's just too cool. It's much easier to make that happen. And I can see here what I'd like to make this leaf a little darker. Right in the center, I want to go a little darker. So I can actually just I can go over that one and glaze it over a little bit so that it kind of stands out a little bit more. And you can do that with all of you can make them a little bit darker, but there's that. That's number 2. So now number 3, I hope everybody's doing good so far. Number 3 is the tree. And this one is a little, it's a fun technique. You can do it. I don't know. I know some of you have already done it. I think I've shown it, but we're going to do it again. So now this is all dry now. My little my background wash is dry. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use like a gray, instead of being green this time, I want to use a gray blue or something dark. I can find a Payne's gray somewhere, and I don't know. I know I have a color that is a Payne's gray, something just dark. And I have a whole palette of grays, and I have no idea where it is. But I'll just try to find something here that looks like I want it to look. So this is I'm going to get a dark color. Maybe if you want to do green, that would be great. I'll do kind of a greenish gray. It's basically, ooh, that's pretty, the bluish color. Maybe I'll do that with a little bit of green. So this is kind of a dark, kind of a Prussian blue or something. And I'm going to throw in, what's that one? Oh, this is a nice gray, kind of a Payne's gray color. I can mix these together, and I want to get a good amount. The same thing. You want lots of color, but we're only making one tree, so it's not, you don't need too much. Okay, we've got a nice color here. It's kind of a blackish gray with a little hint of green. Dark, it's very dark, but it's going to be pretty. I'm trying to find that green I had. There it is. Ooh. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to place a tree. We don't want it in the center. We're going to put it, you can put it on the right or the left. But now if you know what your side your folded edge is, so this is my folded edge on the left side. So I'm going to start my tree kind of right here in this section, this little, on the sort of the left. I'm not penciling in, but if I wanted to pencil it in, I could. I can just pencil a little line to just give me the orientation, like a very light pencil mark, let's say, because sometimes I make my trees lean. So if I wanted to make the center, like this is going to be the what do you call it? Not the stalk, the trunk. So I've got a little line right here. That's my guide of what I'm doing. But I'm not, that's all I need to draw is that little line. So now I'm just going to take my tree, and I've got the point of my tree. The very top of my tree is right up here, and I'm just going to bring, centering over that line I made. I'm taking a fair amount of color, and I can go as fat or as skinny as I want. And I need to keep it nice and wet as I'm doing this. So this one's I'm going to make this one kind of on the chubby side. Big chubby tree. And I want to keep it wet with color. Don't want anything to dry at this point. So I'm just going to fill it, kind of making a teardrop shape here. A large drop is what I'm making. I'm making it nice and large. And I'm making sure it's wet. And as long as it's shiny wet, I'm still good to go. I got to keep it that way. So I'm just going to make sure my edges are still wet with lots of color and still have plenty of paint left over. And what I'm doing is I'm going to take my flat brush that's dry. I don't want to take a wet one. You want it dry. And or you can use any kind of brush that's dry that has it's a flat edge. Even a makeup brush would work. And I'm just going to pull out from the center. I'm pulling out branches. And I'm kind of going bold this time. Sometimes I make them not so bold, but this one I wanted to go bold. And I'm getting this nice feathered effect. I'm just going to go around the whole thing. And what I have is this outline. That needs to be filled in with more paint while it's still wet, with more color. So just use all that color that you had mixed up and move it quickly so that you have your tree shape. And I can see it's dried out, but that's okay. I'll just keep moving it towards those feathered areas. And I've got this really fun tree. And I could take my trunk. Let's see, I'm just going to take my brush and just move that out, but not cover up the lines that I made. Now I can just take my trunk and follow it down, but I don't want to, that's as far as I want to go, about right here. Just making a little straight, just get your trunk established. And if you want to add more color, this is a good time to add more color into the center of it, because this is a very dark tree. It's sort of like, I can bring it up higher if I want, and kind of just create that pine Christmas tree type or holiday tree. I'm just taking my little brush and I'm just following the marks that I'd already made while it's still wet, going from the center out. So that is my tree. So I'm going to let that dry, or I can hit it with the dryer, which I'm going to do real quick because I want to show you the next thing before we. So I'm going to hit it with my dryer to get that, especially the bottom. I want that because right now the tree's floating, and we want to make it land on something. So that's dry enough to do, but I'll just keep that dry so I can show you the whole steps. See how quickly this thing dries everything out, which is just marvelous. Okay, so that's dry enough. Okay, this now, all I need to do is take the wash brush that I just used, this one, and I can use any color. I think it'll be fun to do something really different, because if I just use the same, like a green or something, it would be kind of boring. But I'm going to just use a little purple, maybe a little kind of this darkish color. And I'm going to make a horizon, and it could be a mountainy one. If you, like, for me, I live in where there's beautiful red rocks. I could make a red rock thing, or a very kind of a soft rolling hill thing. But I just want it to have a ground. So I'm just going to create a wash, and I'm going to kind of do it like that. And I want to I want to have a horizon, or a place for this poor tree to sit. So I'm just going to do a nice wash right over it like this. Not too wet. I think I needed to pick up some of the color here. And now I can just take that same green right where at this base, and just kind of bring that over so it doesn't, and I could scrub some of that out just to give it, so it looks like it's really planted in the ground. And now I've got this fun background. I'm going to let that dry. Might even add a little pink, which would be fun, or a really interesting purple. Let's see, throw that in there just for fun. There we are, something a little bolder than normal. So there, the tree is done. And now what I could do, now that it's landed, so now that trunk the bottom has disappeared into the background, to the ground. And now what I could do is I could put some little pretty ornaments on it. And you can do, like in this one, I spattered it with metallic paint too. So all you need to do is the same as you did with the wreath. You get some shimmery paint. See, these are pretty. Look at this interesting color. Or no, I think I'll use these. It's good to, when you check your metallics, just to kind of see what colors you have. It's always good to do it on black to see how they look. I was surprised to see this, one of these colors that I bought. I thought it was going to be a copper, but it turned out very glittery. And then this white I thought was going to be snow, but it turned out blue. So you just have to check how they look before you start working with them, playing with them. So here I love this color. I'll put some of this and make little round Christmas ornaments, or you can do little dots, or you can spatter on it, or you can make garland, that would be fun too. Maybe I should make garland. I think I'm going to do that this time. Normally I don't, so I'm going to do a little garland. And the way I will do garland is I'm just going to make little kind of dashes. I'm just going to go like this. You can make popcorn, little round circles. Any way you want it. It's your tree. And that's one way. You can do something like that. Or if you want to, you can make the ornaments. And you can also make a little star too. I think I'll try not to be too busy with this one, because I usually tend to overload stuff, but sometimes less is better. I'll just do a few circles back. Basically how I did the berries, you just start from the center and kind of work your way around in a circular motion, and that should give you a nice rounded shape. You can do them in different sizes, which gives it more interest anyway. Just slightly different shapes and sizes. I think I'll try a different color just for fun. I'll put some blue on that. This blue shimmery. Basically, you can also doodle, which would be really beautiful to do too. Just, there we go, like nice little rounded ornament shapes. And those will dry a lot shinier than they are now. Another thing that would look cool is tinsel. So making some kind of tinsel, I think, would be fun. But I don't want to overdo this one, but I think it'd be fun to add a little tinsel or some kind of sparkle right in between these little dashes that I made. So I'm just going to do a little dot of sparkle, just a dot. And if you don't have this kind of stuff, if you have stickles or any kind of glitter glue, this would be really fun to do. Just going to let that sit. Oh, I like that. It links it together a lot better. There we go. That's that. I'm going to let that sit. And I'll just hit that with a dryer so I can show you how it dries, and I can take the tape off. And these aren't they're not perfect circles. I can see I've got little orbs or little funny shapes. If I wanted to fix that, I can take my little brush, and I can see one here where it's just a little, it needs a little help. There we are. Nope, it needs more help than when I just think I messed it up. Hey, but that's okay. I'm gonna just make it bigger. There we go. That's what I wanted. Same with this one. I'm gonna make this one bigger. There. Now I'll take the tape off. It's gonna take a minute here to dry. Not long with this thing. And I can always go over those little ornaments later, layer them and stuff. But I just want to show you how cool it'll look when you take the tape off. You've got this beautiful, everything is just much better when the tape comes off. Now we've got this. So we've just made 3 holiday cards. Techniques, here we go. That's the one we just did. And I think that one's dry enough. Yep, that one's dry. And we have the little mistletoe, which I think would be so cute with the little real ribbon, those little tiny red ribbons that you can buy, I think, at the store. So I'm going to unmute everybody.